Hey everyone, how are we doing today? It's Chowder here, and today we're going to be diving into my 6 major tips and tricks to help new beginners and veterans alike in Elden Ring. Elden Ring is a game created by From Software, who is notorious for having niche mechanics in their games. Mastering of these mechanics are able to help your success in the game greatly, as well as experiment differently with other character builds. With the huge release of this game, and it being the most ambitious title from Software yet, a lot of newcomers have dived into the game and have found it quite challenging, which I completely understand. This game is made to torture you and make you suffer through multiple deaths and learning curves. These tips and tricks I've gathered from playing this company's games, Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, etc., as well as my time spent in the game, which is about 40 hours at this point of making the video. I hope these can help you out. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell as well to keep up with more Elden Ring content and other videos like this. And without further ado, let's take a dive in. The first tip I'm going to speak about is called strafing. This is a technique used in a lot of From Software games, and the more the games advance, the better the enemies get at matching your movements when you try and strafe to get behind them. You can get behind enemies, which allows for a critical attack, which does massive damage. Strafing is very difficult to get the hang of, but once you get it, it's like riding a bike. My main tip for strafing in this game is to wait until the enemy does an attack. When they do an attack, their tracking for your movements to get behind them are greatly reduced. You're able to safely get behind them if they start an attack phase, and then you strafe to go for the back hit. This is different and harder on certain enemies. Shielded enemies will be able to attack while blocking, which makes them a little bit harder to strafe at times. However, with enough practice and enough times being spent killed while trying to strafe an enemy for the backstab, you will eventually get it to the point where it becomes second nature. This next tip is going to be something that is specific to this game, which is not found in any other From Software title. This is an open world game, which allows you to explore in any direction you want and pick which battles you want to endeavor on first. This map, however, is massive and ever expanding as you play the game. One of the tips I have for this is to look at points of interest on the map. A lot of the times you'll have points of interest highlighted for you as icons once you get to that area, but for a new area, it is a lot more difficult to determine where things you should be going to are. What I look for is cave entrances on the map, lakes, clusters of buildings, things that look out of place in the environment. Maybe a giant stone sitting in the middle of the earth with nothing around it, or a few giant square block buildings. There are small things that don't match the landscape that can help you find something or lead you on the trail to something. These abnormalities on the map a lot of the times can help you discover a new place or lead you on the path to discover a new place. Once you get the lay of the land, those points of interest slowly become icons or things you've explored and completed. As for starting out though, keep your eye on anything that looks out of the ordinary on your map. Upgrading flasks. One of the big features in From Software is the addition of flasks. Flasks are items that you can use to restore your health or your magic points, which are consumed upon taking a hit or using an ability for your weapon or a spell or incantation. These flasks are very much dynamic in this game as they have been in other Dark Souls and From Software titles. You have one flask that is typically red or orange that is going to refill your health upon use. The other one, which is typically blue, will restore your FP, or magic points as I like to call them, by drinking that. You have a finite amount of flasks that can be upgraded throughout the game. There are certain items in this game called golden seeds, which you need to be on the lookout for to increase the amount of flasks that you can hold. You also need to be on the lookout for sacred tears. Sacred tears increase the efficacy of your flask, therefore restoring more of the health or magic that was consumed. Each upgrade will show as an increase to your flask, and the efficacy is shown by a plus icon with a number next to your flask. The higher the number, the more efficient your flask will be. Your flasks are finite until you rest at a bonfire or a shrine. They automatically refill after you reset every enemy by doing so. Elden Ring has a special feature where you are able to refill your flasks in the environment by killing certain enemies called beetles. The red beetles refill your flasks upon ending them, as well as being able to kill groups of enemies to earn some flasks back too. Dark Souls didn't have this feature and it made it much more punishing. However, that game was more linear, so it was easier to go back to a bonfire area and retry it again. With this open world concept, I feel like From Software wanted people to feel like they could keep chugging along, so they added extra ways to get flasks in. As I said, your flasks are finite, so if you allocate them to health, it will take one away from magic and vice versa, so keep an eye on that. One of the bigger things that has been in every From Software games is creating a build. What I mean by this is your character has certain stats: strength, dexterity, vigor, faith, etc. These all play a part in how your character interacts with the environment. A build is basically finding a set of items, i.e. weapon, armor, magic spells, that match your abilities in the best way possible, such as heavy swords or great swords typically scale with strength because they're bigger weapons. An attribute scaling of C on strength is higher than a scaling of D or E. If you have a weapon strength C, the higher your strength, the more of a buff you'll get when you attack, the more damage you'll do. If you have one that's scaled A with strength, the higher your strength, the even more bonus damage you will do. This means that bigger weapons, heavy weapons, scale with strength. Smaller, quicker, more agile weapons usually scale with dexterity, as well as there being faith and magic weapons that also need that scaling to become most effective. What I suggest doing when you start out Elden Ring is to play as much of a neutral build as you can. Upgrade the important things like vigor, endurance, strength, and dexterity. However, when you find a weapon, armor set, or style of playing that suits you best, find a weapon that will scale well with your build and slowly pour points into those attributes. This will ensure that if you have a strength weapon that scales with strength and you put ability points into that category, you will do maximum damage and make sure your fights are as efficient as possible. Next topic I'd like to talk about is roll dodging. This is something that if you've played a From Software game, you are all too familiar with. Roll dodging is a feature where you do a quick little roll and you have an invincibility frame within a second of rolling. This also repositions you so you can better get in position for an attack. It also helps with high sequence attacks where there may be 3 or 4 moves in the sequence. Roll dodging allows you to get past all of them without taking a hit. However, roll dodging can be done very poorly where you take damage, so the timing of it needs to be practiced and mastered. There's also another thing about rolling that I need to tell you about. You have an equip load. This basically measures your endurance stat with the weight of the equipment you have on. If you go over 70% of your equipment load, you will do a fat roll or a heavy roll. This roll is much slower, consumes more stamina, and is a lot harder to pull off with proper timing. On the other side of the coin, if your equip load is below 30%, you will become light and have a light load. This will give you an ultra fast dodge that hardly uses any stamina. The golden spot for me is medium load. You get the normal dodge, yet you're still able to have heavy weapons and nice armor. The medium dodge is very easy to time and get the hang of, so I would suggest shooting for that if you're starting off on Elden Ring. Last but not least, we have weapon arts. Weapon arts are exclusive to Elden Ring and are something that is a new feature in the game. Weapon arts are essentially adding bonus or power moves that use your blue bar or magic bar to do an increased or element specific attack. There were these bonus moves in Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3 that use your magic bar. However, with the addition of the Ash of War or weapon arts, you are able to pick which ability you assign to a certain weapon. There are certain heavy attacks, there are certain magic attacks that work well with other weapons I've noticed as well in this game. Each weapon art can be applied to a weapon, but only that weapon. You may remove the weapon art if you wish to put it on another weapon, however it will be removed from the current item. You can also duplicate Ashes of War that you're quite fond of at the blacksmith if you find a certain item within the game to do so. There are certain weapon arts that are attacks, there are certain weapon arts that are magic, and there are certain Ashes of War that are buffs, such as a roar or a stomp. These typically increase your vitality, endurance, and damage output by doing a small animation that uses your magic bar before attacking. The weapon arts are giving freshness and a new feel to weapons and allow the player to customize what kind of experience they want with their favorite weapon. Well, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thanks a lot for stopping by. I hope these tips and tricks help you out with your further endeavors into Elden Ring. And make sure that you keep up with the channel. I plan to do a lot more of these videos as well as builds, more tricks, and other bonus content. That's going to do it for me. Thank you guys for coming over. Blue Jay, drop the outro.